The dark truth about Sagittarius. What know which wants you to discover. Have you ever wondered why some people simply cannot be caged, cursed, or controlled? Why there are souls that even the oldest witches speak of not with hatred, but with a quiet, cautious respect? Somewhere between courage and chaos, between prophecy and wildfire, lives Sagittarius, the wanderer of the zodiac, the archer who walks through both darkness and revelation with an arrow of truth in their hands and a strange, stubborn light in their eyes. Tonight, I'm inviting you into that flame. Not the loud, destructive fire people fear, but the sacred inner blaze that refuses to die, even after betrayal, disappointment, or loss. Witches don't fear Sagittarius because Sagittarius seeks war. They fear them because this spirit cannot be owned. Sagittarius sees through false promises, laughs in the face of manipulation, and rises from every attempt to break them with even more faith than before. They don't just survive. They expand. Stay with me until the very end of this journey. What you're about to hear may change the way you see your restlessness, your blunt honesty, your wild, untamed hope. What if the traits you were shamed for are actually the reason the universe keeps protecting you? If this message already stirs something deep inside, take a breath, relax your shoulders, and gently like, share, and subscribe so these truths can keep finding you exactly when you need them most. Gate 1: The flame that refuses to die. There's a moment in every Sagittarius life when the fire inside them is tested. When dreams collapse, when faith fractures, when the world tells them, maybe you've reached your limit. But Sagittarius doesn't break. They burn. Not with rage but with renewal. Like a phoenix disguised as a philosopher, they rise not to prove others wrong, but to prove to their own soul that no storm can extinguish the truth of who they are. This is the sacred paradox of Sagittarius. The freer they fall, the higher they rise. You see, the archer's fire is not the kind that destroys. It's the kind that purifies. It's the inner flame that says, there's more. More meaning to find, more horizons to touch, more faith to reclaim. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of disillusionment becomes a portal. While others see endings, Sagittarius sees initiations. Another lesson from the divine university of experience. They are ruled by Jupiter, the planet of wisdom and expansion, and under its influence, no pain ever goes to waste. Every scar becomes scripture. Every failure a sacred sermon whispered only to those who have walked through the fire and survived. Take the example of someone like Maya Angelou, a Sagittarius spirit in every sense. Through her suffering she didn't crumble. She rose as a voice for millions, turning wounds into wisdom. That is pure Sagittarian alchemy, transforming tragedy into truth. Because Sagittarius understands something most people don't. Suffering is not the enemy. Stagnation is. As long as their soul keeps moving, growing, seeking, they are free. But this freedom often comes at a cost. The archer's greatest gift, their hunger for truth, also makes them dangerous to illusion. They will not stay where authenticity is absent. They will not pretend to love what no longer feels alive. When a Sagittarius begins to sense falsehood, their fire shifts. You might see them go quiet, distant, or restless, but what's really happening is that their spirit is recalibrating. Their intuition speaks through discomfort, and the only cure is motion. So they move away from lies toward light, away from smallness toward something vast, sacred, and honest. This is why many mistake Sagittarius for being flighty or afraid of commitment. They're not afraid to stay. They're afraid to die spiritually while staying. They crave truth like oxygen. They can forgive almost anything except hypocrisy, control, or deceit. You cannot keep them through fear or guilt. The moment they feel caged, the fire turns inward, urging them to break free, to rediscover the horizon that once gave them life. And here lies the spiritual secret witches whisper about. You cannot curse what refuses to remain stagnant. Sagittarius is too fluid, too wild, too in love with possibility to be bound by dark energy. Their movement is their protection. Their laughter, even after devastation, is a form of rebellion. Every time they choose hope again, every time they forgive without forgetting, every time they aim their arrow at a new beginning, they disarm the forces that tried to silence them. To challenge Sagittarius is to challenge divine motion itself. You can chase them with fear, but they'll outgrow it. You can bind them with disappointment, but they'll transcend it. Because their fire is not of this world. It belongs to the spirit, a flicker of the eternal flame that guides souls through darkness toward awakening. When you meet a Sagittarius who has walked through their own night and returned with their light intact, you're not meeting just a person. You're meeting faith in human form. The kind of faith that laughs in the face of despair and says, "I'll try again." That's why witches fear them. Because while they study spells, Sagittarius lives miracles. If this truth resonates with you, take a breath and let it settle in your heart. You were never meant to fit the mold. You were meant to set it on fire and build something brighter from its ashes. Gate 2: The Sacred Wanderer and the Search for Meaning. There's something unmistakably divine about the way Sagittarius wanders, not aimlessly but instinctively, as if guided by a compass invisible to everyone else. They are seekers by design, explorers not only of places but of purpose. To understand Sagittarius is to understand that movement for them is a spiritual language. Every road, every sunrise, every encounter becomes a scripture written in motion. When others cling to certainty, Sagittarius walks into the unknown and says, "Show me the truth." This truth-seeking nature is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's remembrance. Sagittarius carries the ancient memory that life itself is a pilgrimage, that the soul must journey through both ecstasy and emptiness to uncover what endures. They are ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, and under its vast light, they are never content with surface answers. They must go deeper. They must ask why the light exists at all. Even when the world tells them to settle down, to accept comfort over curiosity, their spirit refuses. They were born to chase the divine horizon, even if it means walking alone. Think of someone like Bruce Lee, whose philosophy transcended martial arts. His Sagittarius essence pushed him beyond technique into truth. Be water, my friend. That is the Sagittarian code. Adapt, flow, evolve, never become rigid. For them, knowledge is not a trophy but a torch, one that must be carried and shared. Their greatest fear is spiritual stagnation, the slow death of wonder. So they keep moving, sometimes leaving behind people, places, or even identities that no longer resonate with their frequency. And yes, that journey can be lonely. There are moments when Sagittarius looks around and realizes that few understand the language they speak, the language of vision, freedom, and faith beyond logic. But solitude does not break them. It refines them. Their alone time becomes sacred terrain where their higher self whispers the next direction. When Sagittarius feels lost, they're not lost at all. They're being redirected by destiny, realigned with purpose. They don't pray for clarity, they walk toward it. This endless search for meaning gives them a magnetic quality. People are drawn to them because they radiate something rare. Aliveness. The way they talk about dreams, the way they believe even after disappointment, the way they find wisdom in every chaos, it feels contagious. Sagittarius reminds people what it means to feel again, to hope again, to believe in something bigger than fear. But what many don't realize is that this fire is hard-won. Behind their laughter lies a soul that has seen too much and still chooses faith. Behind their optimism lies discipline, the courage to rebuild, to reframe, to keep expanding their vision even when everything crumbles. Witches, or anyone who thrives on control, cannot stand this energy. Because how do you manipulate someone who doesn't need certainty to feel safe? Sagittarius doesn't cling to promises or illusions. They've learned that everything temporary is a teacher, not a prison. Their trust is placed in the invisible rhythm of the universe, not in appearances. Try to bind them with fear, and they'll break the chain with laughter. Try to deceive them, and their intuition will spot the lie before it forms. The archer's arrows are not aimed at enemies, they're aimed at illusions. The deeper Sagittarius goes into the world, the more they begin to realize that the destination was never the point. The wandering itself, the act of seeking, is the ritual that keeps their spirit alive. They are spiritual nomads in a world obsessed with roots. Their home is not a place but a vibration: truth, freedom, purpose, love. And when they find that vibration within themselves, they stop searching externally. That's when their wisdom crystallizes. They become teachers without preaching, healers without trying, guides without demanding to be followed. They start embodying the truth they once searched for, and the journey turns inward. The road becomes reflection. The horizon becomes heart. In that stillness, Sagittarius finally understands that all the seeking was never about finding God, but remembering they were part of God all along. And that is why no witch, no manipulator, No energy of control can ever dominate them. Because Sagittarius power does not come from what they hold. It comes from what they release. They let go of fear and life unfolds. They let go of expectation and miracles appear. They let go of control, and the universe rushes to meet them halfway. The more they surrender to the mystery, the more it reveals itself to them. So if you, Sagittarius, have ever felt restless, misunderstood, or accused of never settling down, remember, your movement is sacred. You are not lost. You are being written by the divine hand that loves motion more than perfection. Every road you walk, every goodbye you say, every truth you uncover, it all becomes the map of your awakening. When your heart tells you it's time to leave, trust it. You are not escaping. You are evolving. The journey is your altar. And your freedom, that wild, uncontainable, radiant freedom, is the spell no witch can ever break. Gate 3: The arrow of truth and the burden of honesty. There is a silence that always follows a Sagittarius truth. The kind of silence that can heal or shatter, or set a soul free. For Sagittarius, honesty is not a choice. It is a calling. Their words are arrows, forged in divine fire and released from the bow of conviction. And when they speak, they do not aim to wound. They aim to awaken. That is their gift and their curse. Because in a world addicted to illusions, truth-tellers are often misunderstood as destroyers. Sagittarius does not speak to be right. They speak to be real. Their truth is sacred, raw, and rarely convenient. It exposes shadows, dissolves falsehoods, and ignites transformation. This is why their presence feels both magnetic and intimidating. They mirror back to people the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. It's not that Sagittarius enjoys confrontation. In fact, they'd rather keep peace. But the universe designed them to carry the torch of revelation. And torches don't dim just because someone prefers darkness. To love a Sagittarius is to stand naked before their gaze. Not in body, but in soul. They will see through your words, through your stories, through every layer you built to protect yourself from vulnerability. And while they might not always be tactful, they will always be truthful. That truth, though uncomfortable, often becomes the very medicine that heals what's been festering in silence. Because Sagittarius speaks not from ego, but from alignment. When they tell you, you're lying to yourself, they're not judging. They're remembering the moment they once lied to their own spirit and paid the price. There's a story I once heard about a Sagittarius woman who left a high-paying corporate job after one conversation with her younger self. She realized she'd been living someone else's dream, not her own. Everyone around her called her reckless, but she smiled and said, "I'd rather fail in truth than succeed in lies." That is the Sagittarian creed, truth at any cost. They would rather walk through fire than live in a cage gilded with comfort. This unrelenting honesty makes Sagittarius both revered and feared. In spiritual terms, it's known as the arrow of Dharma, the path of righteous truth that pierces through illusion to reveal the soul's purpose. Witches, manipulators, or anyone who thrives on deception cannot bear this energy. Because Sagittarius doesn't just see truth, they embody it. They don't expose lies through argument, but through vibration. Their energy is too pure, too aligned, too unshakable to be twisted. The moment deceit touches their frequency, it unravels. But here lies their sacred challenge. Truth without compassion becomes a weapon, not wisdom. Sagittarius must learn that honesty is not always about speaking. Sometimes it's about timing. The same arrow that can free a soul can also wound it if released too soon. Their journey is about mastering discernment, learning when to speak, and when to let silence be the louder truth. As they mature, Sagittarius realizes that truth doesn't always need to roar. Sometimes it needs only to be lived. When Sagittarius begins to embody their truth instead of arguing it, their presence becomes transformative. People around them start feeling safer, clearer, braver, not because Sagittarius told them what to do, but because they modeled what freedom feels like. Their integrity becomes a frequency that others unconsciously rise to match. That is the higher octave of their honesty. Not correction, but illumination. Still, this path is not easy. There are times when their truth costs them friendships, jobs, even love. They may question, why can't I just stay quiet like everyone else? But silence is not peace for Sagittarius. It is suffocation. They are born under the sign of the Archer, the philosopher warrior whose soul signed a contract with divine law. That contract reads, I will never trade authenticity for approval. And even when it hurts, they keep that promise. If you've ever been burned by your own truth, if your honesty has isolated you, understand this. Every Sagittarian truth carries light codes. Even when others resist your words, something in them begins to awaken. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. You are not here to maintain illusions. You are here to dissolve them. The universe placed a bow in your hands and a vision in your heart so that, through you, clarity could reach where confusion once ruled. And this is precisely why darkness fears you. Because you cannot be bribed by comfort, controlled by fear, or silenced by guilt. You would rather stand alone in truth than be celebrated in falsehood. And every time you choose integrity over convenience, you send a signal to the unseen world. Light still lives here. This is the third spiritual power of Sagittarius, the arrow of truth, the divine ability to reveal, to liberate, and to awaken through honesty. It is the courage to speak even when your voice trembles, and the grace to live by your values even when no one is watching. It is what makes you unbreakable, and what makes every lie around you eventually crumble. Because when Sagittarius walks in truth, they don't just aim for the target, they become the target of divine precision. Through them, truth does what it was always meant to do. Set the world free. Gate for the divine optimist and the light that never forgets. There's something sacred about the way Sagittarius believes, not blindly but bravely. While others need evidence to hope again, Sagittarius only needs a flicker, a whisper, a single reason to rise. Because for them, faith is not an idea. It's a heartbeat. It's the quiet vow they made long before this lifetime. I will never stop looking for light, even in the ruins. And no matter how many times life tries to break that vow, Sagittarius keeps it. Every single time. To understand Sagittarius is to understand divine optimism, not the shallow kind that denies pain, but the warrior's kind that walks through it with eyes still full of stars. Their hope is not naivete. It's muscle memory. It's what happens when a soul has fallen 1,000 times and still remembers how to fly. They know darkness intimately. They've sat in despair, tasted betrayal, felt the ache of losing everything familiar. And yet, somehow, they still wake up believing that tomorrow can be better. That's not delusion. That's devotion. This is what makes Sagittarius so magnetic. People feel alive around them because they embody the resurrection energy that says, even now, it's not over. They laugh in storms, dance through endings, speak light into impossible situations. Not because they ignore reality, but because they see a higher one. Witches, cynics, and manipulators don't know what to do with that kind of power. Because how do you curse someone who keeps turning pain into prophecy? How do you control someone whose hope keeps regenerating like light through cracks in stone? Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, abundance, and divine humor. Under its influence, their faith becomes a gravitational force. Where others see failure, Sagittarius sees foundation. Where others mourn endings, Sagittarius sees beginnings dressed in disguise. Even their heartbreaks have a purpose. They don't believe the universe punishes. They believe it prepares. That's why they can forgive and let go so easily, because they see meaning where others see chaos. But don't mistake their optimism for weakness. Their joy is not fragile. It's forged. Every time they've been laughed at, betrayed, or underestimated, they've gone inward, gathered their light, and risen stronger. They are the spiritual blacksmiths of hope, bending pain into wisdom, fear into fire, and doubt into destiny. They don't just say everything happens for a reason. They live the reason. They embody it, prove it, and teach it through their resilience. One day, life will test every Sagittarius the same way, with something that seems impossible to recover from. A dream lost, person gone, a plan destroyed. And in that silence, when no answers come, something miraculous happens. Their spirit remembers. The memory of their own flame flickers back to life, saying, "You've been here before. You know how to begin again." And they do, because they always do. Their laughter after sorrow is a holy sound. It tells the universe, "You can break my plans but not my purpose." That is the Sagittarian miracle, the unkillable light. No curse can find it, no shadow can claim it, and no disappointment can bury it for long. When they rise again, and they always do, they carry with them the wisdom of survival and the grace of faith reborn. Their optimism becomes prophecy. Their life itself becomes proof that love is stronger than fear, that beginnings are infinite, that faith is freedom. But there's a deeper reason for their joy, something few understand. Sagittarius doesn't believe in positivity because it's comfortable. They believe because it's sacred. Faith to them is a way of honoring the divine, a way of saying, I trust you even when I can't see you. This surrender turns their hope into a shield. Where others see delusion, the universe sees devotion. Their laughter becomes prayer. Their adventures become offerings. Their very existence becomes worship. That's why no witch can outspell them. Because every time darkness sends despair their way, Sagittarius responds with light, laughter, and a stubborn childlike trust that says, nice try, but I know who I am. Their optimism isn't armor. It's frequency. A vibration so pure that fear cannot attach to it. They walk through chaos untouched because they've learned the most powerful truth of all. Joy is rebellion. Hope is resistance. And faith, real faith, is the language of immortals. So if you, Sagittarius, have ever been mocked for your idealism, ever told to get real or stop dreaming, know this: you are real. You are the dream the universe keeps dreaming. The living proof that no shadow lasts forever. Your joy is medicine. Your faith is a map. And every time you choose to believe again, you heal not just yourself but everyone who has forgotten how to. Because in the end, Sagittarius doesn't just chase light. They are light, wild, laughing, uncontainable, and eternally reborn. Conclusion: the return of the fire, the completion of the journey. And now, Sagittarius, we return to where this journey began. To that sacred flame inside you that has survived every storm, every silence, every shadow that tried to dim your light. You've walked through the gates of truth, freedom, pain, and rebirth. You've learned that your fire is not chaos but creation. Not rebellion but revelation. Every scar you carry now glows like scripture, each one proof that you are not only unbroken, but chosen to remember what others forget. That faith itself is a form of magic. You see, the story of Sagittarius is not about running away from darkness. It's about running through it with eyes still burning for the horizon. The world will call you reckless for refusing to settle, naive for believing again, foolish for forgiving again. And yet, you will keep doing it. Because that's what light does. Keeps shining even when no one's watching. It keeps guiding even when it's tired. It keeps loving even when it has every reason not to. That is your divine rebellion. Your way of telling the universe, I will not let despair define me. Somewhere in your heart, you've always known that the journey is not about finding answers but about becoming the answer. Not about reaching heaven, but carrying it within you wherever you go. You are the eternal traveler, the philosopher of faith, the fire that teaches others how to hope again. Your laughter is not just sound, it's ceremony. Your forgiveness is not weakness, it's resurrection. Your truth is not a weapon. It's a key that unlocks freedom for everyone you touch. So as you stand here, at the end of this story and the beginning of your next one, take a deep breath. Let the fire rise again. The witches may fear your light, but the universe dances in it. Your journey was never meant to be easy. It was meant to be eternal. You were born to remind the world that even after everything burns, something beautiful still survives. If these words have awakened something within you, let it speak. Right below. I am the fire that never forgets its light. And if you felt the truth in this message, like this video, share it with someone whose spirit needs remembering, and subscribe so that this circle of awakening continues to grow. You are not alone in your fire. You are part of the constellation, the divine flame that keeps the night alive.